Good evening and welcome back to another live episode of Red Tinted Glasses here on the Red Tinted Glasses YouTube channel. And I'm sure those of you catching up on audio will enjoy the show. Coming up, we look back at the weekend's 2-0 win over Fraserburgh as we continue our pre-season preparations towards the start of the season. Sadly, more so for Calum, there is no signings to talk about, but for those that tuned into the show last week, whether that be on live or audio, don't fret. Calum's transfer rumour section is back by popular demand. I don't even know if it was popular, but it is back anyway because that is how little content we have for the show today. So lots to discuss, I'm sure. If you are joining us live on YouTube for the show tonight, make sure you do get involved in the comments tonight. If there's anything you want us to discuss on the show tonight, please feel free to drop us a comment and we'll do our best to get to those maybe at the end of the show as well. But Calum, how are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm good. A bit bored with the lack of sort of transfers, ongoings. The weather's a bit rubbish. It just sort of feels like October or something like that. I'm not enjoying it. This is not the party summer that I was hoping for as of yet. When I donned the lovely AFC bucket hat and sunglasses, I might have to bring them back if we're still in the same position next week. How are you doing, Glenn?
Yeah, not too bad. 17 days away from the first competitive game of the season as of Wednesday night when we're doing this video live. I don't feel we're ready for the season yet, but I suppose more on that a little bit later on. But we're certainly doing our best to get ready for the season. Of course, as I said, we continued our preseason preparation with a 2-0 win over Highland League outfit Fraserburgh at the weekend, and probably made more to work than we were against Turriff in a week ago today. Of course, that probably difficult to follow up a 9-0 win when the expectations there for goals galore, but I know you were taking in some League Cup action at the weekend instead, so missed out on a very sunny day at the Belsley. Although don't be fooled by how good it looked with the sun. The wind was lurking as it always does in Fraserburgh.
Yes, that's correct. I was at Starks Park for the Fife derby between Wraith Rovers and Dunfermline. I was just desperate for some. I was due to be down in Fife for the weekend anyway, and I was desperate for some competitive football action. Usually, we've got some by now. We haven't though, however. And it was actually Caitlin that mentioned it. I totally forgot about the game, so brownie points to her. I'm not certain she enjoyed it so much. But yeah, it was fun. It was good. Had a pie. Asked for a steak pie. Got given a Scotch one, but it was still all right. But on the Fraserburgh game, Glenn, we were a little slow to start against Turriff. Was that sort of similar up at Fraserburgh, given a bit of a mishmash of players between first team, new signings, and also some youngsters?
Yeah, we went for a different starting 11 than started the game against Turriff. I think you mentioned it on the podcast last time out that we might do that with Barry Robson, maybe looking at different combinations, different players, trying to obviously give the players as many minutes as possible, with Jack McKenzie being the only one that actually started the game, who continued to start into the second half. And I think, as I mentioned, the wind, Fraserburgh actually swapped the teams around, so had the wind in their backs in the first half. Obviously, a tactic they use quite a lot in the Highland League, and did put us under a bit of pressure in the opening exchanges, as maybe we were just trying to find our way. We had Kieran and Gwen start the game, and I thought he looked solid, and Shaden Morris playing on the right hand side, I know caught a lot of attention on social media for his performance. Once again, I probably agree with people that said he looked good, but then a lot of people aimed criticism at us for saying Dante Polvara looked good on the Wednesday, and said we have to remember the level that of opposition. So I would say the same for Shaden Morris, but for me, again, for Shaden at the weekend, it was that final product that was still potentially lacking, in my opinion, whether that be the final pass or the final finish. It was still a bit rusty. Obviously, that's likely to improve maybe as he gets more minutes under his belts. But I wasn't certainly as potentially impressed as others were on social media. But had it not been for Joe Barber being at his very best in the early exchanges, Alfie Babbage could have scored a header. It was really well saved. Again, it's quite similar to the Turriff game where Alfie Babbage was denied early on. And similarly, he denied Duke, and I'm sure there was somebody else he denied with 2 1-on-1s. So there was some good goalkeeping, some very structured defence from Fraserburgh that was kind of really frustrating us. And, you know, a lot of people said Fraserburgh would probably provide that, you know, certainly a bit more of a test than Turriff did. And I think you could see that in the setup and the organisation that Fraserburgh brought. But on the other hand as well, Kelleros had a lot more to do than he did in his 45-minute appearance against Turriff, having to make a good couple of saves, and Fraserburgh again using the win to almost score from a corner as well. So I think that's what I quite liked about the game as well. We got to see more of the defence being tested than we did on the Wednesday, and I'm sure that will continue again this weekend against Preston. But yeah, there was certainly for me in that first 45, I can see why people thought Shaden Morris stood out. Leighton Clarkson already adding his first assist of the season with an excellent ball over the top to Alfie Babbage, who I'm sure from a Fraserburgh point of view will be really disappointed at that goal because the shot that he had could have gone anywhere, and thankfully from an Aberdeen point of view fell back to Alfie to tap in his first goal of the season. But I don't really feel I was overly impressed by anybody in that first half. It was quite lethargic at times, a bit slow. I don't know how much that double sessions that Barry Robson did on the Friday before the game kind of caught up with us. I saw a few people also mentioning the link up between Ngwenya and Duke kind of getting in each other's way. I wasn't really too frustrated about that because I thought it was quite positive to see both of them getting forward. And again, that kind of goes back to the point that you made on the show last week about trying players and getting them used to those possible combinations. So not certainly something I'm going to overreact to. But yeah, I think, as I said, coming off the second 45 against Turriff to that was always going to be a bit of a downer, I guess.
That's fair. I suppose on the Duke and Gwenya thing, I suppose they've not played a lot together, and to develop that understanding and both positional awareness for each other, they need to play together essentially. So it'll be interesting to see if that's something that happens more. Certainly, if we don't sign a left back, that'll be interesting. But you mentioned our defence got tested a little bit more. How did they shape up, and how did they respond to the test? Was it a 3? Was it a 4? Was it a 5?
It was certainly a back three in the first half with Mackenzie, Devlin, and I've totally forgotten who the actual centre back was. And then Gwenya was at the left. And again, it was so Jack Milne was a centre back that started the game. I can't remember who was playing right wing back, but then in the second half, it certainly felt more like we went to the 4 because as I noticed during the halftime warm-ups, Rhys Williams was supposed to be on the bench, but was nowhere to be seen during the warm-up, certainly at halftime. I don't know. I was a bit late into the ground and the team were warming up on the opposite side of the ground to where I was standing. So I don't actually know if Rhys Williams was even taking part in the warm-up pre-match or if he picked up a knock during that. But Jack Mackenzie had to come out and play most of the second half, and it looked like, again, like I thought we did on Wednesday against Turriff, we went to a back 4 in that second half rather than a back 3. And we didn't really, well, I thought we certainly started the second half with a bit more intensity. So certainly that 4-3-3 formation isn't doing us any harm, but it certainly looks like we're able to adapt in that formation change.
Well, that is encouraging. Obviously, we still need more players to play in these formations, but I suppose that's encouraging because I do feel like going into the new season, we will adapt depending on our opposition. Certainly going with the 3 centre backs /5 at the back with the wing backs in the more testing games, and then in games we're expected to control, and we can commit more bodies forward back to the 4. But also in the second half, you mentioned the change in formation. Anthony Stewart made an appearance. What were your thoughts on how he performed?
I think everyone was expecting a mistake or holding their breath and thinking, surely he's not a way to come back on. But actually, was saying to the guy next to me, I wonder what reception he's going to get when he comes on. And, I didn't hear anything negative towards him coming onto the pitch. And look, he actually had a very solid game, didn't put a foot wrong. I thought he played well. Again, like people will say about Dante and Shaden Morris, like I've just done tonight, you've got to remember the opposition that he was playing against. But I know a few people have also said, given the style that Barry Robson has played, where it is a bit more no-nonsense defending, that is potentially what Anthony Stewart will suit. He didn't suit that ball-playing style that Jim Goodwin wanted him to play. We were told that before he even kicked the ball for Aberdeen by Wycombe fans. Yet we still tried it anyway. So interesting to kind of see what happens. But I also think it's quite interesting that we haven't really heard what happened to Reece Williams and why he never played at the weekend. Obviously, as well with Angus MacDonald still rumoured to be out until potentially the Celtic game as well. That's two main starting centre halves you'd suspect now missing. Does that creak the door open for Anthony Stewart? I know we're going to come on to your rumour section a bit later on in the show, but again, we're getting closer to the start of the season. If we don't get another centre back in before this weekend, again, like I said, this is assuming it's worst case scenario for Reece Williams. It could have just been a slight precaution by not playing him. We don't know. But that was the one takeaway from me for the weekend. With the Reece Williams missing out, and obviously still Angus MacDonald missing out, and the fact that Jack McKenzie had to play was nearly 80 minutes, I think was how light our defence is. So hopefully, we thought we would be coming on tonight to speak about signings. Hopefully, before the weekend, we do see at least another one defender coming in.
Yes, fingers crossed. I will fill you in on those rumours later on, everybody. However, Alfie Bavidge on the score sheet probably should have been up at Turriff. How did he and sort of other youngsters sort of fit in? Maybe a slightly higher standard of opposition against Fraserburgh. Also, obviously, still remembering they are a Highland League side. But how did they look? Any particular impress? I know Marshall did up at Turriff.
Yeah, again, I suppose it was quite difficult for Alfie Bavidge because probably didn't get as much service as he would have wanted. But he puts himself in the right areas. As I said, he was unlucky with that header in the first half. He rose really well to get it on target. I think for me, a lot of praise goes to Joe Barber for getting up and deflecting it over. Once again, though, I was really impressed by Finlay Marshall in the second half. He looks really commanding in the midfield, but also is not shy in driving forward and breaking into the box. So, I was really impressed with him backing up that performance from Wednesday night against Turriff. And part of me kind of thinks if, Barry Robson says, look, almost goes and says he wants to put faith in young Finlay Marshall for this season, I wouldn't be too disappointed. Rather than, not necessarily chasing new signings, but if we've obviously spoken about the strength and depth that we need, but if Barry Robson comes out and says, look, I'm wanting one more midfielder, but we're also going to keep Finlay Marshall for the league, I really wouldn't be opposed to that, certainly on what we've seen so far. I guess people are going to say, well, we maybe need to wait what we see from Preston and Charlton. Again, I thought Kieran Ngwenya looked good at left wing back, again, purely because of his pace, and I actually think he's got a bit of physicality about him as well. You're always going to get that bit of rough and tumble from Highland League players as well, but I thought he held his own very well. So yeah, probably those three were, I guess, standouts in a sense, but I don't know if maybe a lot of people are going to have a kind of high expectation on Alfie Bavidge, similar to what people maybe had with a Det McManus, a Lawrence Shanklin, guys that were scoring for fun at a young age, and probably expecting them to walk into the first team and do the same. Is going to maybe take a bit of time for them to hit the ground running. So maybe have to be cautious not to put too much pressure and expectation on someone like Alfie Babbage.
Suppose you can add Bruce Anderson to that list. It'll be interesting to see if we do finally have a striker break through and play regularly and score goals for us. It'd be nice if that was going to be Alfie Babbage. Ross Doohan came on in the second half, didn't he? The new goalkeeper. Was he tested at all? How did he look? I've seen some concerns over his height. Also mentioned by Forest Green Rovers fans, believing that they'll maybe get a new goalkeeper who can touch the crossbar. But how did he look?
Yeah, he is small. I mean, I think anybody compared to Kelleros will look small. Unlike Kel in the first half, I can't really remember Ross Doohan having a serious save to make. I think he only had one save, and it was a shot from distance, pretty much straight at him, that he gathered with ease. So, unfortunately, kind of like Tom Ritchie against Turriff, you can't make much of that performance. But I'm sure he'll have been glad to get his first minutes under his belt for Aberdeen.
Absolutely, first clean sheet as well, building confidence, even if it is against Fraserburgh. He scores goals. He's read Esther Sotclair, bagging again from the penalty spot. 5 goals in the 2 friendlies in a total of 90 minutes. Did you learn anything else about him, do you think, from his performance that we didn't see up at Turriff?
I don't think we'll learn anything new. Certainly those that were at Turriff, I don't think will have felt like they learned anything new. Maybe those that didn't get to see him live on the Wednesday against Turriff will have been impressed by him. There was a couple of instances in the second half where he was played in, and for me it was the way he controlled the pass. I think this time being behind the ball rather than having that side on view again, just being able to see that. There was one pass in particular where he just almost stopped it dead. Unfortunately for him, he kind of leant back on the shot and blazed it over the stand. Thankfully, Fraserburgh installed a bit better system that the ball doesn't fly onto the road now. But I'm sure by his own standard, he'll have been disappointed not to hit the target on that occasion. I can't remember if it was him that was unselfish to set up Johnny Hayes not long after we did score the second. Unfortunately, the ball couldn't quite get out of Johnny's feet quick enough, and the chance went by. But once again, kind of what we highlighted last Thursday about his first touch, his movement, but also his pace. I kind of noticed that more again at the weekend, how quick he actually is, and his movement. He really seems to pull defenders one way and then another by, and which is probably going to be good for us if he's kind of coming on as an impact sub, if that's the way we decide to go, because he'll be taking tired defenders out of the game, and you've got Johnny Hayes who runs like there's no tomorrow, potentially Shaden Morris as well, Duke, all these guys with energy to burn will suddenly have open space to run into. So he looks a really, really handy player, and hopefully he can just keep up this form that he's found in the early stages of the season.
Well, that's certainly encouraging. It'd be interesting to see how he'll do in the step up in competition, and probably maybe in physicality as well, with Preston and Charlton. But as far as the Fraserburgh game goes, Glenn, no further questions, Your Honour. I'm pretty satisfied with what we've covered.
Oh, that's good. Glad to hear. I think we'll see more of a kind of step up in quality this weekend as the Dons travel down to England to take on Preston. No new signings in the door yet, Calum, but do you think this weekend as we go down to face Preston, we'll maybe see a starting 11 similar to what we would expect to see against Livingston when we start the Premiership season in 2 weeks' time?
Yes, the Dons are heading to Preston. I, however, am not, unfortunately. Train strikes causing some severe issues. But I think we will. I think we will start to see more of our stronger, more favoured 11 starting as Rory creeps in behind you there. I think we will see, certainly as we build towards the start of the season against Livingston, we will begin to see what Robson has in mind in terms of for our strongest 11 and test them out, certainly from the start. I presume there will still be wholesale changes, but I do wonder if players will then sort of perhaps begin to play a little bit longer as they try and build up the fitness towards the start of the season. And I am very much hoping that we will have some new additions as well to at least play in the second friendly down in England, if not the first.
Yeah, and I think obviously with Jack McKenzie having to play as many minutes as he did against Fraserburgh, I assume down to the fact that Reece picked up that injury or not, whatever was wrong with him. I think you're right. We probably are likely to see maybe some of these players get 60 minutes, 70 minutes at the weekend against Preston, trying to get that match fitness up and ready for the trip to Livingston in a few weeks' time. So really interesting to kind of see what Robson goes with. And I do agree that we probably will look to try and play more of a first team to start the game. And because I think we should be looking to do that if that is going to be only the next two games that we've got, Preston and Charlton, so that when it comes to Livingston, it isn't the first time that these players are kind of starting a game together as such.
Yeah, I would agree. But I am getting a little bit worried now that it's only 2 weeks away. We've not really added anyone that's going to improve the starting 11 for approaching 2 weeks. I am a little bit concerned, and I hope we can begin to sort that because it's not a lot of time to bed in players and build up their fitness now at this stage, is there?
No, there's not. And I guess that's also I suppose, concern around the lack of signings, especially in a key area such as defence, where I guess we saw last season with some of the injuries that we got, where defensive partnerships were a bit lacking and maybe understanding of each other was again lacking. So really important that these players are signed up and we can kind of get used to those players in that position, and likewise the teammates can gel. But I guess, Calum, we're gonna have to wait and see what comes in the next maybe 48 hours ahead of that Preston game, because there has certainly been rumours around defenders being signed, but unfortunately no progress as yet. So do you want to start your Callum transfer rumour segment now?
I think so. Have you got? I believe you have a jingle for it, Glenn.
Yeah, I'm glad Rory's left because he'd be correcting me that I'm singing it wrong. But if anyone's got kids, they'll be very familiar with the jingle. It's the Callum right rumours. Come on down, come on down. It's the Callum right rumours. Come on down, let's come on down.
I was waiting for Rory to come join you and join in there.
Yeah,
But that was absolutely beautiful, Glenn. Thank you for that. I
perfect.
feel privileged that we have our that I have my own jingle for my own segment of the show. So thanks very much.
No problem.
We'll start off with some players we've previously discussed on the show, Glenn.
Mm-hmm.
Stuart Finlay was mentioned when we asked for suggestions from listeners, viewers of the show. They got in touch at RTG_podcast on Twitter and RTG.podcast on Instagram. So make sure you get involved there for future. Was mentioned. I agreed that I would have liked him. We need a left-sided centre back. However, he has now joined Kilmarnock on a season-long loan, returning to Kilmarnock once again. So congratulations to him. I'm sure you'll enjoy that. But I would have personally had him. Tyler Walker has joined Lincoln City. That was the forward released by Coventry that was potentially going to join us, son of Des Walker. Declan John was also mentioned. He is currently still with Bolton Wanderers, no further developments, and hasn't moved anywhere else, certainly not north, which is a bit of a surprise. And Tom Hamer, the right-sided defender that we were linked with from Burton Albion. His contract did expire, however, he's since or was heading towards expiry. However, he actually signed a new contract the other day to keep him there until 2025. Any of those you're particularly disappointed about, Glenn? Maybe any that you've had a dream about, perhaps?
Yeah, this is an insight into how sad my life is. That yeah, I had a dream about Tom Hamer after you mentioned him on the podcast, but purely dreamt about him in the sense that he scored a 30-yard winner at Ibrox for us. So I was actually going to wake up and tell you that I dreamt about him and that I hope we signed him, but you were going to probably think I was really weird messaging you at 6:30 in the morning that I dreamt about Tom Hamer. But yeah, he scored a header to equalise and then pinged in a 30-yard screamer to win us the game. So I was all aboard us signing him purely based on a dream that I had. But yeah, your Declan John rumour didn't go unnoticed because I think it was mentioned on at least 3 occasions to me at Fraserburgh on Saturday. How much did I know about Declan John signing? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure someone on Twitter has just taken what Calum said on this podcast and pretended that it's true.
Possibly. None of what we say is gospel. We genuinely, unfortunately, as much as I'd love to, know nothing about it. We are as much involved in the rumour mill, essentially, as the regular average Joe. Unfortunately, if anyone wants to slip any information our way, then please do. However, we know nothing. We
Yeah.
know absolutely nothing. Interesting dream, though. Thank you very much. Please do share in future. I wish that had come true.
Yeah.
I wish it had come true. But if you do enjoy the fancy land of football, head over to my YouTube channel, Cal, right on YouTube. Lots of football managers nonsense going on there. But anyway, let's not divert too much.
That Saudi video is very good. I will recommend that.
Thank you. Calum right on YouTube. Check it out. Well, in the Saudi video, perhaps we would have had enough money to pay for Tonio Teklic. However, instead, he is close to joining Trabzonspor, according to reports in Turkey, for a fee of 1.2 million euros, which begins to annoy me that we have spent fees on some other players that haven't been so good in recent times. And then we're penny pinching when we would probably be able to sell him on for a lot of money. Regardless, that is a big fee, probably just under a million, about £1 million with the conversion. I'm not really up to date. It changes all the time now. And apparently a lot of the problem on our side was they wanted to up the fee because they owe Hajduk Split a big sell on, so we weren't involved in that. But it's pretty obvious as soon as I heard about the Trabzonspor links, other than getting my hopes up a little bit, that he was going to head that way, because not only will they be able to pay a bigger fee, I'm sure they're able to offer double, maybe triple what we could offer in wages. But is that one you're disappointed about, Glen, that we've missed out on?
I don't know if I'm disappointed in it because I feel it's really dragged out for quite a few weeks now. And I remember, I'm sure it was Stephen Gunn that said we won't really kind of waste time on players that don't want to be here. I do admire Tonio Teklic's trolling on Instagram, though, by following Trabzonspor, following Aberdeen, following Inter Miami. So some top trolling there from, getting everybody's hopes up. Also, fair play to that link there, getting yourself a wee plug and then linking it into your latest rumor. So very well played. But no, I mean, look, he would have been a great signing going by what we've seen, obviously, on YouTube and any clips you find of him on social media as well. And certainly the right type of quality that we should be attracting or wanting to sign at the club. But the longer that saga, if you want to call it that, went on, the worse it was going to be for us. And I know a few people are disappointed that you're going to mention a couple of the names are already moving on to plan B, or it's a Tonio Teklic backup. Well, is it a Tonio Teklic backup? We could sign somebody and they could be just as good. We don't know how he would have fared in Scotland. And do you really want to drag that out till August when we probably need quality like that in sooner rather than later? So look, it sounds on paper it's a player that will be someone we're disappointed not to get, but the longer that went on, I'm just glad it's going to be put to bed if he does put pen to paper at Trabzonspor. And I think they've got a Croatian manager and signed a few Croatian players as well, so maybe he'll feel more at home in Turkey.
And better weather, I suppose. At least there's that as well. But I do agree in terms of I'm kind of glad it's now just basically over with, because realistically we need as much of these players that I'm going to come on to, or otherwise, in the door in the next week or so, if they're going to get
Yeah.
any sort of pre-season at all. So I'm glad it's over, and perhaps now we can just fully focus on other targets and move elsewhere. But before we come on to those other targets, however, Aberdeen potentially set to pocket 100,000 is the rumoured figure for Scott Wright moving on to Turkey from Rangers. Despite the fact he played in the friendly against Newcastle United, interestingly, yesterday. He came on as a substitute. Glad to see you back. Him in Scottish football means we don't have to worry about him scoring. We get a little bit more money as well as having McCrory for a while, and then a few million quid on that. So, good riddance is what I say. Anything to add on that, Glenn?
Yeah, echo those sentiments, and thank you for the extra 100,000 that hopefully we can put to good use in the coming 2 weeks.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And using some of that money, some of it may go into the wage budget, and that's what's likely we would be paying for this signing. Killian Phillips, rumoured to be, we're sniffing around on loan from Crystal Palace. The attacking midfielder, who can also play on either wing, is 21 years old and spent the second half of last season on loan at Shrewsbury Town in League One. He won Young Player of the Year in that time, scoring 3 goals and grabbing 2 assists as well. And I believe he has been involved in Irish youth teams as well, as well as all of this. So, Glenn, player we know a lot about, however, encouraging that we are at least rumoured to be in the market for a player who would play a similar position to Tonio Teklic.
Yeah, obviously we're doing a bit of research, and this was the player that we were speaking about as being the backup or plan B to Tonio Teklic. And you've really worked on your links tonight, Calum, and you can tell that for a change you've done a lot of research, because you've actually done all these notes on all these rumours, and I just scribbled 3 things that I need to remember to say on this podcast. But Killian Phillips, again, probably a player, as you said, we don't know a lot about, but if you look at his time at Shrewsbury, obviously came into a club at the time, I think, if my League One memory serves well, Shrewsbury were kind of struggling around January time and went on a really impressive run in the second half of the season and came close to making the playoffs. And, you know, any player that goes in and plays only 19 games and comes away winning the Young Player of the Year has got to be admired, and 3 goals and 2 assists in a short space of time as well is credible. I guess when we're again speaking about that strength and quality, probably a player that could come on and replace Leighton Clarkson, or again we could have an option. I think he's mainly a centre attacking midfielder, but I note from your notes he is comfortable on either wing as well. So again, when we were mentioning playing that 4-3-3 potentially, a player there that could fit into that formation as well.
Absolutely. Also fitting, perhaps this week, that we sign a Killian in the week that Oppenheimer is released. Killian Murphy in that one. So, hey, you know, it adds to the fanfare. Also, in the rumor mill today, actually, a name which is not going to be easy for me nor probably anyone to pronounce. Yaya Atiala. I was sent a tweet from a journalist. It would appear from Jay Moyer earlier this morning. So thank you very much, Jay. And the journalist mentioned that this is likely to be a loan. However, someone in the replies said he is out of contract, and I had a look on Transfermarkt, and it appears there's no date on the contract, so nobody's got any clue who he's playing for, if he's got a club or whatever. But I can tell you that he is a 28-year-old. Primarily a left back. However, according to Transfermarkt, once again, he can play all down the left hand side, which adds a bit of versatility. Perhaps that would be encouraging. He's previously been linked with Montpellier and Real Betis, and apparently a deal for him fell through to go to Montpellier. I think it was this past January. So those sort of clubs being linked with him sort of suggests to me maybe this is not so reliable.
Yeah.
But he has played 10 times for Morocco. And I think he was in the squad at the World Cup as well. I'm not sure if he did feature, though. My research didn't quite go as deep as that. But 28 years old, primarily a left back, and last played for Wydad AC in the Moroccan First Division, who finished second in the league. Your thoughts, Glenn, if you have any?
Well, I think the fact that you mentioned Jay on the podcast, he'll be doing wheelies around his living room just now. But I can't help but feel this is just an utter shite rumor. Based on the profile that posted it on Twitter. I mean, again, hoping it's not purely down to the fact the quality. Again, he was involved in the Moroccan World Cup squad, as you said. I think you're right. I don't think he did play. He plays in a position that we do need cover in or more experience in at left back, but I'll believe it when I see it. It'll be the one that I won't believe until his scarf's above his head.
Yes, it certainly does seem unlikely. However, with rumours going quiet on the Declan John front, it is at least we're getting linked to left backs because God knows we do indeed need one. However, we also need centre backs. We've mentioned that on the show earlier. We've been speaking about that for months at this point. We do need centre backs, and it is rumoured to be close on a deal for Slobodan Rubezic, another really easy name to pronounce, who is a 23-year-old Serbian centre back that stands at 6'4" and probably similar wide because he is a brick shithouse by the looks of things. Currently plays for Novi Pazar. So congratulations to him for that. But his contract apparently expires at the end of the year, December 2023. His current value on Transfermarkt is 2 million, so that would suggest that maybe we can get him on a cut price deal with his contract set to expire. He's primarily a centre back, plays usually as a right centre back in a flat four. However, apparently can also play as a centre defensive midfielder. Glenn, what would your thoughts be on this big shithouse? I personally would just be delighted because it's centre back. 2, he's fucking massive. I said A and 2. Okay. And 3 lines, Roman numerals. He's Balkan, so it adds to the crew.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly doing a lot for Balkan relations if he signs, having a Macedonian, Serbian, Albanian, and Slovenian in our team. I mean, let's just hope that him and Yilbert get on if he signs for us. I mean, it's also going to be some rise for him as well because I'm going to leave the pronunciation of that team to you because you're really getting all the tough jobs tonight on the show. Some rise for him if he does move to Aberdeen, going from second division Serbian football, as I think it's Serbia that he currently plies his trade in, to European football in a short space of time. So that would be some jump for him. But given the fact that it seems to be rumored that we're willing to pay 6 figures for him, and as you said, transfer market having valued at 7 figures, it's a real intent to get a player in, and we also seem to be fending off some strong interest from other European clubs as well. So certainly a player not going unnoticed and a position that we need. And yeah, you just need to look at some of the pictures of him to realize how much of an absolute unit he looks like. Pretty intimidating to look at, and I'm sure it would be very intimidating for some Premiership strikers to come up against as well. That one is a deal that seems to be kind of close if you want to believe the hype on social media, but also interesting that he can play as a centre defensive midfielder. So if Reece and Angus are fit, we also then do have cover not only at centre back, but for the likes of a Yilba Ramadani being injured or Graham Shinney being suspended.
Absolutely. I mean, whilst I am not particularly keen on, playing players out of position, I think Derek McInnes perhaps did that to me. However, it is good to have players when we are going to have such a tough season ahead of us that are
Yeah.
capable, if required, to fill in elsewhere. The versatility is important. So that would be encouraging that he would be another one capable of playing in more than one position. And at 23 as well, still plenty of time to improve as well. By no means at the peak of his powers, shall we say.
And I guess another thing I like as well is that I'm sure Keane Phillips is touching 6 foot as well. So we're actually not we're actually signing a lot of height in the team, and that's something I was critical under Stephen Glass. I felt we were quite a small team, quite a weak team, even though we had Alan Russell's set piece playbook to help us out. We'll actually be quite an intimidating team to come up against at set pieces, but we'll also have the height defensively if, of course, some of these players do come off as well.
Absolutely, I do agree. I mean, in football, it's always terrible when you concede from a set piece. You never think you should, but then
Yeah.
often teams don't make the use of set pieces for themselves. So ideally, if we could improve in sort of both ends of the camp with these sort of signs, then I would be delighted. Another defender, however, there's been some swirlings about Liam Scales coming back on loan. However, I do note that he played in Japan. He came on as a substitute, I think, with about 15 minutes to go for Celtic. So maybe not too likely. But it's one that we keep coming back to. Glenn, how would you feel about it if he was brought back? It's rumoured to be a loan, though.
Yeah, I know. I know. Obviously, Alan Burrows was at the Granite City Supporters Club AGM, and for those on the right forums or that were on Twitter early enough to see some of the comments made, we won't go into them too much. Obviously, there was a lot of talk regarding Liam Scales, and I think we've spoken about it on this podcast as well. So we'll speak about our own views on this signing, but they kind of seem to be echoed by what was kind of said at this AGM, that the price could again be an issue. And that's, for me, been my biggest concern around Liam Scales, is that we pay above and beyond what I personally feel Liam Scales is worth. I replied to, there was a couple of Celtic fans had commented on the video that we did about Esther Sotclair and getting to know him. So if you still want to find out about our new signing, and haven't done so already, you can check that video out on YouTube or go back on audio as well. And again, I'd said that my personal fear is that Celtic are going to price us out. Look, I guess, as the comment said that we read, was Robson would rather have Liam Scales for 34 games than none at all. But again, we do need a left-sided defender, and Liam Scales fits that bill. I'd really be opposed to a loan deal because, again, I guess it's just that fear of him eventually going back to Celtic and improving, a la, the Ryan Christie deal. But I guess it's just, again, I don't feel it's going to be one that we would get in and done before the start of the season. It's probably going to be a transfer deadline day signing. And I'm sure that's not what Robson and the club want either.
No, I tend to agree. I think he's a decent enough player. He improved a lot playing alongside better defenders. I would be happy with another loan from Celtic for the obvious reasons that we wouldn't be able to play him against them. However, if we do fail to miss out on targets who would be able to play against Celtic and would be of a similar, if not better, standard than Scales, if we do miss out on them, that are left-sided centre backs, I'd have him back. I'd have him back. He's a good player. We saw that at least then. If we signed this big Serbian fella, we've got Reece Williams, we've got Angus McDonald. There is still other capable centre backs who perhaps could slide over to the left hand side of the three. I suppose if you bring him in, there's also the bonus if he can play left-sided centre back of the three, and also as a left back, perhaps in a four as well. There's that too, but we'll see. We'll see. Just mere rumours at this stage.
I guess as well,
Also,
I'd also be tempted to say, if we are taking him on loan, tough luck, he's playing against you.
I don't know if we have that power, however, but you never know. You never know. Might end up in a Kazenga Lua. No, was it Kazenga? Lamano Lua situation where he was on loan from Portsmouth, from Newcastle to Portsmouth, and then proceeded to score against Newcastle and do a round-off backflip as a celebration. So I'd like to see Liam Scales pull that off if he fancies. Speaking of rumoured to be versatile defenders, I've seen a few people mention him in the comments in the live. Keep getting involved if you fancy it. Or Dadia, rumoured he could play centre back and defensive midfield as well. However, stats seem to point towards the fact he's not done that a lot. He is primarily a right back who obviously then can play as a wing back. 25-year-old Israeli with one international cap so far. He's 5'10", which puts me off in terms of playing centre back. Absolutely. From Hapoel Beersheva in Israel, and it's rumored to be a loan with an option to buy. Is what we're looking at right now, or perhaps obligation. Not a player I know a lot about, but he's played in group stages for Hapoel Beersheva on the European stage, so that's good experience. Obviously now an internationalist for them, making his debut in 2022, when they already have a very good right back from memory, having played him millions of times recently. Anything to add on this one, Glenn? It seems it's apparently pretty close. It might take a wee while with visas, work permits, and whatever. I'd be happy with him as another sort of squad option. Good experience as well. Provide competition for Nicky Devlin and Jaden Richardson as well. Let's not forget.
Yeah. Well, firstly, I was going to say, oh, daddy, yeah. That rumor got me excited anyway. And yeah, you made a good point there about the fact that he's played group stage football for Hapoel Beersheva as well. So quite key. Certainly, if you look at our defense, I know Reece Williams has got experience at Liverpool. I can't remember if he did play European games for them, but we don't exactly have players that are experienced on the European stage. So that would be certainly vital as well. I'm actually sure his international cap came against us as well, because as you said, we play Israel every other week in international duty. But also, if we do sign him, I can't wait to shout "Dadiat" when he misplaces a pass as well. And don't shake your head, because you know that either your dad will do it or someone near you in this house stand will do it as well.
My dad will do it if he bothers to learn his name and just doesn't confuse him with like Nicky Devlin or whatever, because he seems to just, know about half the players' name and just spend players' names and just sort of interchange between them, even if it's not them, most of the time. So I know it's Sotclair and Miofsky will be a nightmare for him, but he probably will get involved. You're right. But that does sort of tell you the level of patter you've got now, that he's a 8-year-old man, Glenn. It's proper dad chat. I know you are one, but you're really leaning into it now.
Look, Kaiser enjoyed it. That's the main thing. And the thing is as well, with his first name being Or as well, if you said who's playing right back and someone says Or, and then be like, or who? It's just going to lead to countless opportunities for me to wind you up in the course of the season. So I'm all aboard signing him as well. But the interesting point you made there was about his position being the versatility of being a right wing back or a right centre back. In season so far, we've seen Nicky Devlin deployed at right centre back, and you mentioned as well about playing players out with their maybe preferred position, or in our mind played out of position. And if this signing does come off, where do you see Dadia playing versus Nicky Devlin? Do you see us using that experience of Dadia at right back and putting Devlin into right centre back, or do we switch them about?
I think we switched about. I suppose in European competition, or Dadia could be useful, considering he's got experience of playing at that stage. And then on the flip side, playing in Scotland, Nicky Devlin, very experienced. So it would be a pretty good prop to have, you would think. It would be interesting to see what happens to Jaden Richardson after that, whether he goes out on loan or whatever, especially since then you could maybe consider Finlay Marshall as the third choice. Right wing back or right back, whatever. Two, if he went out on loan. It would be a nice problem to have, and we need to have quality, whereby if players are suspended, injured, just generally fatigued with all the games, where the drop off is ideally non-existent. So I think Devlin would certainly come in as the first choice, but having Dadia who can fit in slot in very, very nicely. Obviously, he'll have a bit of a settling in grace period as well. It would be a good problem to have, but it is concerning me that the two transfers we seem to be closer to, if the media are to be believed, right-sided again. We seem to be very imbalanced.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a problem for us a lot that we're always imbalanced. Some part of our squad last season, we were very imbalanced in wingers. This season, we're going to be imbalanced on right-sided defenders. But an interesting point you make about Jaden Richardson, what that potentially means for his future at the club if Ordadia does come in, whether or not that spells an end to his time at the club, whether that be a loan deal or a more permanent departure from the club. And I just wonder if there is going to be kind of some outgoings before we do see some incomings. I did note from Alan Burrows' tweets this week that he has said that we were hopefully close on a couple, if not three. But again, I think, as we kind of alluded to with trying to sign some of these foreign players, you've got the whole Brexit red tape to work through, visas, work permits alike, that can be difficult to tie down and get in place, because as we saw last season with Bojan and Yilba Ramadani, that we announced the signing, but it was, a week to 10 days, maybe even longer for them before they could actually kind of get involved. And we saw, them not being able to, get into the country for time being as well, which again kind of puts pressure on with the first competitive game of the season just being 2 weeks away on Saturday.
Absolutely. I mean, to be fair, it might be good if there's like a bit of a passport problem or something with Slobodan Rubizic. In terms of around Danny might just have a bit of time to prepare himself mentally. So that maybe that'll help. However, I will note on that fact the fact we are signing players from sort of similar regions within Europe does help, because Esther Saltclair and Miovski, not from the same country, Miovski said in an interview, they do speak a similar or the same language as well. So that's automatically helping him settle in. So encouraging, at least. I don't know any rumours anymore. I'm all out, unfortunately. Hopefully, this time next week we'll have some concrete stuff to talk about rather than this. But I do want to mention this from Michael Strachan earlier in the show. If everyone's fit right now, who would your first 11 be? Imagine Livingston on Saturday. What would your first 11 be, and how would you play? What formation? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I
Would
know.
you like me to go first?
Wait, no, I'll go first.
Okay.
But I wish I'd seen that earlier so I could have mentally prepared and wrote notes as I went along. I would start. I'm gonna have to write this as I go along as well to make sure, because I'll either name 12 people by mistake. So I'd start Kel in goals,
Obviously.
and then go.
Same.
I think I'm gonna go with 4 at the back, and go
Yeah,
Nicky
me too.
Devlin at right back,
Okay.
Angus MacDonald and Reece Williams as my centre backs.
Yeah.
And then Johnny Hayes at left back.
Okay. Interesting.
Because I'm not Jack McKenzie's biggest fan, but I know this is now going to leave me short. Then I'll play Yilba Ramadani in front of the defence.
Yep, naturally.
With Graham Shinney alongside.
Yep.
6, 7. So I've got 4 players left to pick. It's quick maths, folks. Leighton Clarkson in front of them.
Yep.
And then I'd have Duke on left-hand side.
Okay.
And then Miovski
Over
up front. Oh, yeah. No. Well, the question was if everybody was fit, who am I playing?
Okay.
And I know Saltclair's had an impressive start, but I'm going to go to the tried and tested from last season. You can chuck an Esther if you want. This is my team. Back off.
I was just posting the question.
Now, I'm struggling at right wing because of who I'm playing at left back.
Right.
which I'll give the benefit of the doubt to Little Muscle Boy
Yes.
and play Vinny, purely
Okay.
because I've still not seen enough from Shaden Morris to give him time, and Vinny's scored and set up a few. So I'll give Vinny the benefit of the doubt. But if I did play a proper left back, a la Jack McKenzie at left back, then that would push Hayes into midfield. I could swap Duke to the right, and Vinny would be on the bench.
Poor Vinny. I would tend to agree with the team you just left. You just said with Vinny starting, etc. However, I'd maybe be tempted to give Kieran Gwenya a shot. Looks very ready physically, and if not now, then when? And also his
True.
pace to burn on the counter attack perhaps could be excellent. And with only 4 defenders as well, his pace in terms of recovery, getting back when we are counter attacked upon as well. Just a little something. I'd like to see it.
Should have probably tried to remember about him as well. To be honest, I was trying to find a way of potentially shoehorning Finlay Marshall into the team as well.
Wow.
But we've also got players like Connor Barron, who hasn't even got a sniff into that team as well. Esther Sockler, like you mentioned as well. But what do you line us up as?
I would have basically the exact same, other than Kieran and Gwenya in actually. I think that would probably be our best 11 as of now, and then at least from the bench, then you have Big Dance, you've got Connor Barron, you've got Esther Sockler, you've got Ryan Duncan, all attacking options.
So if
Potentially
you're
Johnny Hill as well.
Yeah, so I was just say, if you're playing Kieran Gwenya at left back, are you not starting Johnny Hayes?
I'm not starting Johnny Hayes at this moment in time. I think that
controversial.
might be sticky toffee bias, and it's not what I think I ultimately do. But there we are. But then we've got Hayes off the bench as well. So, that's looking good already. Still with, 4, 5, 6 potential additions between the now and the close of the window. So it's when we put it down on paper, sort of like that, it does. I've sort of been reassured a little bit. It's just left-sided defenders that we need imminently, I feel.
It also says to me we need a right winger, because I don't necessarily trust Vinny and Shaden.
Right. If we don't have a podcast next week, guys, you know why?
Yeah, and this is also proved tonight why we sit and critique the team and are not in the dugout.
Yes, absolutely correct. But if you do want to see me in the dugout virtually, then head over to Calum Wright's YouTube channel. Just Calum Wright, Football Manager stuff going on. I have a new video tomorrow at 7 p.m. Get involved. Thanks for setting that up, Glenn. Not even planned.
No problem. But we'll be back next week. Probably go for Wednesday again. Middle of the week, 7:30. So if you are new to the channel for the first time tonight, remember to hit that subscribe button. If you've been watching and haven't done so already, hit that like button as well. And if you are a subscriber but don't have the notifications on, whether that be on here, on YouTube or on audio, remember to hit that subscribe button and get the notifications on, so you're alerted to when we come out on episodes. And if there is some big signing news, we will, of course, have maybe a breakout emergency podcast sooner rather than later. We've got a few irons in the fire. We're just waiting to dot the I's and cross the T's, I suppose, and then we'll convene and get something together for you guys. But to all of you that have been tuning in with us tonight on the podcast and interacting here live on the Red Tinted Glasses YouTube channel, thank you very much. Until next time, we will see you then.
Bye.